Welcome back to Geeks and Grounds, a monthly game club and weekly podcast where we play games and brew thoughtful conversations together. I'm your host, Jenny Wyndham.
And I'm Joel Thomas.
And we are here with a special guest today. We have Fáyer, who has been one of the developers of the game we've played this month, Arco. And y'all have made an incredible game. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I hope that means that you liked it.
We had a great time with it. We're really excited to talk with you. The community also has been playing the game throughout the month, talking about it in Discord. We've spent the last 4 weeks just diving into Arco and really immersing ourselves in the world. So we're really excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you. And I'm excited to talk about the game. 4 weeks, that seems like a decent time. I mean, Arco is not a long game, but it's also not short. It's like... I think it's like around the size that if I was a regular player, I would be like, I will play this. This doesn't feel like too much. Yeah. There is definitely, you can go deeper into some things and like play for more, but also like if you don't want to do that, there is ways to like make it shorter as well.
It was perfect. Like the format, also the act format, I thought was really good because every week we did like 1 or 2 acts. So it like had us almost like a TV show, but video game style. It was very cool.
That is something that I would love video games to have. Not the act format, but in general, a way to be able to like play with a community and follow until like a cut to be able to discuss it, like episodes or like a movie. But like in games, it's almost impossible to do that.
No, it was perfect.
Even as we were like doing our most recent recording, going through the end game chapters, it's like kind of getting emotional all over again, just with the opportunity to discuss it and like relive some of those moments. So one of the things we were talking about was like, what a powerful game, not just to play through an experience, but the discussion of it has even given us a deeper appreciation for it and helped us kind of relive some of those big moments. And I feel like that's a real work of artistry to be able to do something like that.
I think I'm going to relive them now in these conversations. Because there are some moments that I'm like, oh no, I don't want to remember that.
So for folks who are new, or perhaps if you need a refresher, again, every month we play a game together. We discuss it piece by piece every week in the podcast. And so if you haven't played Arco yet, highly encourage you to do so. You can also listen to our episodes that cover each act of the game. And before we get into our conversation, we always like to stop, make a pit stop, grab a snack at the pastry case, and see what else we've been engaging with, other media that we've enjoyed since the last time we chatted. So I can kick us off, and Fáyer, if you have anything that you've been like reading, watching, listening, or playing that you wanted to shout out, feel free. I have a couple of things. The first is a Netflix series that came out a couple weeks ago called Adolescence. If you have access to a Netflix account, VPN, a friend, whatever, I would say this is one of those must-watch shows. It's like a British crime drama that takes place over 4 episodes. It takes place, the episode in real time. So 1 hour of real time is an hour of episode time. And in this setting, it's shot entirely with one shot. And it's a story that explains like the manosphere and misogyny through multiple lenses. And I think it's probably one of the most impactful things I've watched. Like I had chills. My jaw was dropped. It was so good. So I think that was something I watched recently that was really good. Have either of you seen it or heard of it?
I just watched the trailer for it last night after we were chit-chatting about it, and I was like, my gobs were smacked watching it. It was just, it looked intense, but also just like very, very like interesting. The shot, like the fact that it's also continuous is just, it seems really cool.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but someone told me about it also, like it's just out, right? Like a week or something like that. Yeah. And I've seen like many conversations surrounding it, and I added it to my list of like things that I need to see soon. It helps that it's not that long, because I'm not a fan of Netflix's like whole season, because then eventually, like when they do something else, like season 2 or whatever of some shows, like it's difficult to follow as well. Like I don't remember, like because I watch it so fast and like, what was it about? So I much rather like watch episode by episode and in like a week space.
Yeah, totally agree. So yeah, definitely recommend that. It's heavier watch, so just be ready, but very good. And then shouting out two books, that one that I'm currently still reading and the other that I just started, Never Whistle at Night, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. I've just been reading this anthology of short stories, short horror folktale stories. I wanted to show off the cover for folks who are watching on video, like on YouTube, because the cover is just
gorgeous.
beautiful. And it's really good. So if you want more like indigenous folk tales, horror stories, this is like primo reading. And then a book called Kinda Korean, and it's about a person who is Korean. Her parents are Korean, but she's raised in the U.S. and it's about that dynamic. And so yeah, very excited. I just started it, and so far it's very good. Joel,
yeah, I've been getting into I'm not a huge Critical Role fan in the D&D's world. However, my boy Brennan Lee Mulligan is doing a mini series DMing for them called EXU Divergence. And in the last time he guest DM'd, all the characters were level 20. They were gods, and it was really cool. And in this one, all of the characters are NPC level characters. Like they have no stats, no powers, nothing. And I'm just really intrigued to see the storytelling difference between the two. So I'm pretty excited to be digging into that.
Nice. That sounds cool. Excited to hear how that can like pans out. Did they just start it? Like
I think they just finished the final episodes, like 4 episodes. I think they just finished the last
that's
one.
Nice and short. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's nice and
That's very
short.
good.
Each episode is like 5 hours long. So
Oh my God. Dang it.
they D&D over there.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. That is real D&D. Yeah, for sure. Oh my goodness. And Fáyer, what have you been up to lately?
Well, I watched the second season finale of Severance. I don't know if you got on that.
yeah.
So good.
So yeah, that I think it's good. If for whatever reason someone is listening to this and haven't getting into like the show, you should. It's good. There is this other layer of like mystery and stuff that a lot of people are engaging with sometimes. I mean, it's fun, but also sometimes like makes you, I don't know, like sometimes it ruins some shows because of like people get obsessed about them. But it's, for the moment, I think it's still nice.
Yeah.
And it's a nice show. It's an intriguing premise. And I don't want to say more because it's one of those that you discover as you go. Get as don't even like, you can watch a trailer or something, I guess, but like I don't know how will you sell that. Just getting it. It's fun. It's a Ben Stiller production, which is interesting to learn because not a lot of people know that he does good stuff. And anyway, that, what else? Oh well, it's a pastry moment. Then I just released a pastry game. I don't know. It's called Pancito Marriage. It's like a Suica. It's a Suica game but it is themed in like Mexican bakery, and it's on itch.io. It's free to like, it's just free. It's on web. You can play it on mobile as well. I made it in like during a little bit before GDC. Like it,
That's
I was
so
just like,
cool.
I had the idea a long time ago, and I was like, I just had the time. Arco is done. I can explore it, and so yeah, that's another thing that it's self-indulgent. It's not nothing
cool.
I'm consuming, but it's like fun, simple. It's there. And on my way to GDC, I played Despelote. It's another one of those short. It was nominated. It won an IGF for sound, maybe it was. I think really good. It focuses on a kid during the 90s, during Ecuador's qualification to the World Cup, I think, and it it has that layer of like real story and the developer's story as a kid and what was going on around there in Ecuador. It's really interesting. There's not many games based on stories like that, so I think it's quite special. And on the way back, I was gonna play Indica because I heard so many things, like good things, but I discovered that I didn't install that on my Steam Deck, so I played. But I had Crow Country there as well, so I was like, all right. And I also like that. And UFO 50. I've been playing a lot of UFO 50.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Do
you have a favorite UFO 50 like cartridge?
I've been following this other club that does one a week. So I'm like, middle of the way. I think we're on like the 25th, the latest one was the Western cowboy one.
Yeah.
Trail Heist or something like that.
Uh-huh.
I really like Barbuta. I really like Porgy. I like those that are like getting in some divers and what else? What? Mooncat.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
bad at
that's
choosing favorites. So there's
yeah.
like so many good ones in there. So yeah, definitely give it a check if you haven't as well.
Yeah. What a great shout. Yeah, we talked about UFO 50 like way back, and then I was trying to go through every single one and I kind of fell off of it, and now you've inspired me to maybe reinstall it
Yeah, I
and
think
start
it's a
doing that
good.
again.
I don't know how I will approach it before, like without the club, because I think
Mm,
one a week gives you, for some it's like more than you need, but
mm-hmm.
but it forces you to like check them a little bit deeper, and for
Yeah.
others is less. But I've been like, sometimes I get a little bit ahead, and then I do some other work stuff, and then oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they got up to me, so I like continue. So it's a
Oh,
great
that's
way to
cool.
not burn out on, because it's too many games, and it's like
Yeah.
I think I've invested like 100 hours so far. So, but it's like, again, like I started in October, so it's not, it doesn't feel like it, but it like takes a lot of my gaming time.
Yeah.
Oh
So
man, it
yeah, I
must like
think
really be scratching that itch for you. Like, were you into it before this podcast that you're listening along with?
yeah.
Oh man. How did it change? Like, as you started getting into the podcast, did it make you like appreciate some games differently than as you were playing them before?
I think what I like about it, and I think it's also what your podcast is about, is just like having someone else, like, because sometimes you're not playing the same things as your friends, and like missing.
Mm,
I really miss the discussions, like
Mm,
when we were younger, and you could like play something with your friends and then just obsess about it. That's why also probably what I like following things weekly instead of like all of the
mm,
same setting. Because if not, like if you watch the show Adolescence, and then you want to talk about it and we haven't watched it, so you have to wait for us, and when we watch it maybe in like a couple months or whatever, you're not as excited to talk about it, like,
mm-hmm.
so like following a community that is doing something in that also has some, like, I mean, we're all different, we like some and others, it's interesting discussions, and the host of this show is the Eggplant Show, like, they're like game developers, game designers, they invite other game developers and game designers, so it's like a really rich conversation. Sometimes
Mm.
they don't like the game that you like.
Sure.
So, but like it's
Yeah.
still interesting to like listen to them like dissect like what works, what doesn't, under like the meta of the game as well. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a really interesting thing to do. And so I've been stopping myself to like, not forcing myself to one a week, but at least like, at my own pace, not like
Mm-hmm.
going like 10 games in, because like, again, like it's better to like taste them and like go a little bit deeper into them.
Yeah. That's amazing. So yeah, that is the pastry case for us this week. Again, if you would like, please subscribe to the newsletter where we'll have links to everything we mentioned. So if you want to get Fáyer's new Suika-like game, or if you want to see like this podcast or UFO 50, that's all going to be there tomorrow. And if you have additional games you're looking for more to play, 2 shout outs to notable releases this week. The first is Bugaboo Pocket, which is sort of a virtual pet bug raising game. There's a little bit of a story, a little bit, at least from what I've played, like kind of an environmental message. So very cool, kind of casual, light game. And then on a very different emotional scale, Odd Venture, which is coming out on April 3rd. This is going in early access, and I played a demo a very long time ago, so I don't know how reflective the demo is now of the current game that they're going to be releasing soon. But if you enjoy sort of quirky RPGs a la like Undertale, I would say this is maybe going to be something up your alley. Tonally, not quite like Undertale. I think this was a little bit more sort of edgier, darker humor. And so I'm going to be very curious to see how dark and how edgy they go. But from what I played, it seemed pretty interesting. So Odd Venture and Bugaboo Pocket.
looks very cool. Like an
Yeah.
Earthbound vibe almost.
Yeah, it's got that sort of feeling to it for sure.
Hmm.
I didn't know
So,
Bugaboo released. I was looking forward to that. So now I
yeah.
know.
Yeah,
I have
I'm so
something new.
excited.
Yeah.
um, so that is it for the pastry case. Let's head on into our main topic of the day, a conversation with Fáyer. We have had some of my favorite conversations through playing Arco. I will admit, like, this is up there for me personally in terms of narrative and how I feel like I'm almost thinking about the game more than I even played it in terms of time mentally spent on it at this point. I'm curious, just so that folks know who you are and maybe some of the areas that you specifically worked on within the game, if you could do a quick, like, what did you do? What's your role on the team? And maybe even, any other projects you might have worked on that influenced this too.
Yeah, my name is Antonio. I'm a
Mhm.
developer from Mexico, and well, people know me as Fáyer, which is like just my artistic name. Uh, and I mainly for Arco, I mainly programmed. That was my role, but it's difficult to there's we have some like a specific role in the game that we did, but that there is also like a lot of like back and forth and adding to different layers. So because I was the first one, I think, that implemented the actual events of the game in like the engine. I
Mhm.
also did a lot of writing because the way we structure it, it was like not fully written as you see it in the game, but like an outline somewhere else. So I translated that into like the first version of like what was in the game, and then eventually it got like rewritten and edited. And so there was some writing, some game design, a lot of structure. I think the tutorial is mine, like almost completely, like because
Wow.
it didn't exist before. I think it was supposed to start with Tiso directly or something like that, and then when at some point, like, there's maybe we get into like deeper because I saw that there was a question about like some previous thing that I said about it. But yeah, there's like a lot of changes. The way we work, like the core team is it's me in Mexico, then the musician in Spain, then the art and game director and artist the from Poland, Franek, and then the other main programmer, like the systems one in Australia.
Mhm.
So we are not on the same time zone, any of us.
Every time zone is covered, I
Yeah,
feel
so like
Man.
we always joke that there was always someone working on Arco, and it has some good and bad things. Like it was really difficult to have meetings and like plan
Mhm.
them because of like how our own personal time worked, but it worked somehow. I would like when I joined the team, I was like, this is not gonna this doesn't work. Like I
Mhm.
made games for a long time and like enough to know that like without having a like a focusing on the structure,
Mhm.
it's gonna like things fall apart. Like and it worked. I don't know how or why. I will never recommend people to work like this. And but like again, like I'm still surprised. And I think it's because like we're professionals and we're focused on our things that there was no need of someone like be like, hey, what are you doing? What are you up to? Did you already do this? Like
Mm.
so it was mostly like we like individually we work on our thing and then we send it to the next one and then the next one grab whatever it was like in the game in the code. There was not a lot of documentation or stuff. Like if you ask me something specific, I will need to get in the code and like check it because there is nowhere like where like there is an up to date thing that says like this is supposed to
Wow.
work like this. There's a lot of ideas in a lot of places.
Yep.
Uh, so yeah, worked on it, like send it to the next one, and the next one grab it, and then sometimes you feel like a little bit of playing and editing, like combats or like this action, like the attacks or the skills don't work as this one doesn't work as expected with this other one, so I'm gonna like mess around with it, or like I'm gonna change
Mm.
completely, or you had this idea, but what if this, or I have this new idea as I was playing this, and it will be fun to do that, right,
Mhm.
etc. So like that's probably why there is a lot of random things like this. I mean, it feels it feels like a real world because like there is a lot of like us paying attention to weird corners that we each found interesting, and my biggest thing was like, is this is gonna like because you can see that the pillars were good,
Mhm.
you know, like you can see art. Writing, like the story, music, etc., the combat, and you can be like, all right, this works individually, but like
Mhm.
I didn't know like the whole thing would be a nice like better than the parts, you know. That was
Yeah.
because we didn't have enough time to test it like that, you know. We're a small team. It became a bigger game that we wanted, like originally was supposed to be, etc. So
Yeah.
that's a long introduction to say like many things, indie, many hats, but mainly programming.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear you talk about the ways that like geographically you were all very disparate, time zone, you all had different roles and like areas of focus, but then you come together with this shared goal. And I'm like, I feel like it mirrors the
Yeah,
journey very much that you all took, the
Oh,
characters
the
take in the
characters.
game, because they each have their own sort of thing, but when they come together, you know,
it's like a
yeah,
Journey to the West kind of format, which is
yeah.
like, like a bunch of misfits get together, they discover they have a similar goal, or like they're put together to like work on that and then
Hmm.
see it through. And like I would say, like the Arco party, they're not friends. I mean, they're like they
Yeah.
find themselves like trying. They're not even looking for the same thing. Like the biggest thing, yes, they want to defeat these other people,
Yeah.
but like why? That's completely opposite. Like in some case, like one are looking for glory, one are vengeance, etc. Like the other ones are just like making want to get rich at some point. So like it and it's kind of similar to like it's not how we found ourselves, because at the end we're like trying to make a game and all those things, but and we're closer, I think, that they are. But like we're not a studio. Like if you
Mhm.
see all our games, our names under like the developer on Steam, for example, so there's no
Yeah.
big name behind us. It's just like us. So like that's something also that mirrors that experience. Like there's no
Mm,
the rebellion or something like that. It's just like this character specifically.
yeah.
That hadn't even occurred to me. I guess like one of the things that you're now making me wonder is what at the beginning was the idea or the thought that made you want to do this project? And then I'd love to know if when you finished, was there a different thing that made you like really proud of or appreciate this project?
So I was the last from the core team to join the team. They were already they already like found the publisher and were like trying to like shape it. When I joined, they sent me a demo that looked pretty close to what you played, but the idea behind it was different. They wanted it to be like a roguelite. And they told me
Mm,
that before they wanted it to be like a multiplayer kind of like, like a
Huh.
combat thing only. And then the
yeah.
roguelike had more like a survival kind of vibe. Like you were like in these lands and you were trying to survive with like some food and water. And like that's what the mount was really important at the very, because eventually it just became like a thing that you have, but it's not, doesn't matter as much. Well, there's a couple quests that relate to like changing them, etc. But like most of the time it's
Hmm.
just like flavor.
Mm.
But like before, it was really important because like you needed to feed it and you needed to camp, and it was more like again a roguelike of exploring these lands, and it was less written. It was less a story and more like the mechanics and the feeling of it.
Mm.
And I played that version, and I love how it looked, and I love the combat. I love the vistas, and it was, but I don't want to play a roguelike, like I don't want to be, because we played enough and I much rather play something that someone designed, and I do
Mm.
love roguelites a lot, but at the moment I was like, I don't know, I'm feeling kind of like burnt out on the genre, and I kind of want to
Mhm.
feel like I'm playing something that someone designed, like someone
Mhm.
put this in front of me with some intent, and I want to discover that instead of like the machine created. I mean, it's not AI, like at the end
Mhm.
there's a lot of work, human work, into like this procedure generated stuff, but it's still like, anyway, that's a lot of the things that I brought at the very beginning. I don't know if it was because I was being obnoxious about it, or they just like, let's just try it. But to me, like the world was already kind of like defined, like designed.
Mm.
There was some work into there. The characters had a lot of personality. The graphical world that you see like had a lot of impact. And I was like, I want to let people just be there,
Mm.
Mm.
and then I think we can figure out like a story that could grab those things, and then, well, with it. But that was the most hard thing. And like I think you asked, like, so to start, it was completely different. Like again, like the shape kind of the same. If you squint like a little bit, it looks
Sure.
Mhm.
similar. But like like the design choices behind it were like trying to do somewhere else. So when I joined, I think like I, I I was a freelancer for something. I was just like checking some stuff, and eventually I became part of the core team because I think they like how I was approaching like the shaping the game,
Mm.
Mhm.
and like trying to like give it a form that maybe will be good. I don't know. I need to ask him eventually, because they're some, like, it's a story, like it's a weird story, like how it all happened. And I think at the end, what we like proud of, like what I'm proud of it, like coming after, like, because it wasn't the intent. I think you seeing it like as at the beginning of this, you mentioned like you really liked in the discussions and thinking about it. That's, I think, we made something that people are connected with. It got nominations and other things that are also good. But like at the end, like just friends coming back and saying like, hey, I play these and I feel these, and like sharing their like journey through the game to me. I think that's the thing that I always wanted to do, because I come from mobile games, and or I made like this other game that we discussed, the little Suika like, and those are like nice and people like them and play them a lot and all that, but like there's not a lot of discussion, you know, like it's like you get in, you play a little bit and you go, there's like little snacks, but this is like Arco is like a whole meal.
It's a meal.
And like, yeah, and it's like many dishes meal, you know, like it's one of those like family, you get there's like hours. And I don't know if you end up like feeling satisfied about it, or like, oh, that was too much, or like it's just enough, but like it is a meal. So I'm proud of that. I think as a team, we're like I didn't know. I was saying I didn't know if it was gonna be like, if it was gonna work as a thing. And then at some point I played it as trying to feel it as a player. It's impossible to do, but like close enough. And I was like, all right, I can see like this might work. But then when we released and people were like saying stuff and all that, like, all right, it worked. Like we can be safe about it. You know, like, okay. We like, all right, it's done. Like there is some technical issues here and there. We can fix that. Like, but like if the structure or something didn't connect, you know, like it's gonna feel just like pieces, like wrapped together and like thrown up like up to the world.
That's incredible to think about, because like, you know, we finished this game and we were both just like so like emotionally wrought. Like, oh, this is like a story. And it's funny thinking about like your perspective being so close to it when you finally like finished it, got it out, that like it wasn't until you started like hearing from the community that you were like maybe able to trust it. But for us, it was like instant. Like we finished the game, we're just like, oh man, yeah.
And I think it's like movies or shows where like you're not working on it like sequentially, like in order. So there's like, I saw pieces of it and they were like, oh, this is really impactful, or something. Some things I discovered when I was implementing them, or like sometimes I just like placeholder the whole thing, and then someone else came and like edited or like wrote those things, and then and then eventually I played them back and I was like, oh, what is this? Like there is an alternative way to finish the game. Well, there's many like paths and stuff, you know, like you've probably seen some of them in like in between, but there is a way to do some like kind of specific path that like takes you somewhere else at the end. Not like completely at the end, it's a story, so it needs to kind of end similarly, but like there is like an extra version of that. And I don't even know if I could do that. Like I tried it on my like this run that I told you that I did, and I couldn't find out. There is no way. And I was like, well, I hope people like post like guides or something there, because it's like it's difficult to do it.
That's incredible. I wanted to ask a question that a couple of community members have, because this relates to like the side quests and a lot of the little details that were included. Shout out to Val and Bunny for these like side quest focused questions. There are a lot of moments that add these details to the characters' journeys and the world specifically. Did you have specific sources of inspirations that you drew from for these side quests? And why did you make them so detailed when like you could have just done fetch quests, right? Because these are really, I think, expansive to the world, and they didn't have to be.
Yeah, I think a lot of these things I'm gonna really think about, because I think it just happened. It's like most of these were like fetch quests, you know, like go there, grab something. But like when you have a world that is kind of cohesive, like Franek kind of like put together the whole like map idea and like the factions and like the different like towns and peoples and stuff. And he grabbed from, there's like some Mesoamerican inspiration, but there's some African as well. Like he grabbed from like many places, you know, like it put, at the end to me, this feels like Lord of the Rings. Like it's you can clearly tell where the inspiration comes from, but at the end it's like a fantasy layer on top of it.
Yeah.
And so, and I think because we're all from different places, like we just like, there's a moment where like he said like, I want this, like this is a quest that I have in mind, you know, like this person is gonna do something, or like you have to go and fight this monster in this cave, and this is the person that is gonna ask to it. And I was like, oh, I have the perfect creature for that, and in the lore of my people, you know, like I'm just, what if we created this, or like, and then it's like, because we all went and did it in the game, and our game is fairly graphic, like as long as the location was the biggest thing to like draw, like create, and like, but the characters are simple and it's mostly dialogue, and so it's easy to be like, what if we change this for this other thing, or adding more. It's just like writing more. None of us are like English native speakers, other than Max, which is the programmer Australian, but he was the one that was writing less. So we had Tina as an editor, and she come to us quite late, like the last year of the game. So a lot of the game was already kind of there, and she just like grabbed the whole thing and like edited in a way that made more sense, and like felt like it had like a clear voice in the characters and all that. So she was the one that I think put like the bow at the end of everything, and so I think for like the question was about the quest, right? Like I think most of them were like, because we came with our own particular ideas and feelings and stuff. Like there was like, this is gonna behave like this idea of a quest, and then you went in and you wrote it and you put it in the game, and then someone else grabbed it and like, it feels like it needs something here. And then because the systems are like quite, it's just like it's in code, but it's done in a way that the text is in the code, so it's not just references. You can see how it flows, and you can be like, what if there's a lot of ways to like do detours and like come back to the same thing. And like eventually we created the systems that allowed us to like make it better, so there was a lot of like coming back and like rework some stuff, but it allowed us to create like conversations, like something like these tools like Twine, or like like for visual novels or heavily dialogue games. We made our own things, so it allowed us to like just have fun. And I think it's just that, like, if you went in and you felt like it lacked something, you added it. You had the same tools. It's a lot of this game is made like in like puppets. Like you just move them a little bit. You start like conversations. You like add some, like there's like pre-done systems for stuff like items and skills and things. So it was like kind of simple to. It's still. Like you have to work a little bit around it, but like it's not that difficult to create a new scene. And once you like bought the world around the game and the characters, it gets easier to just add stuff, because you can keep just adding dialogue and text and conversation. And because of the style of the dialogue was already like defined pretty early, like it also allowed us to just keep going at it.
Yeah. That's so cool. You gotta love a good system where you can just like, after one is done, you can implement content, and that's nice and easy. This is a good segue into a tonal question that quite a few people had. Shout outs to Val, Jessica, and Bunny, who asked variations of this. So you mentioned how folks would go in, see things, and add personality. And one thing that we noticed when we played is this game is really funny. There's a lot of comedic moments. There's a lot of jokes, and even modern sense of humor, like the emojis. There's like some cursing where you're like in a fantastical world. Sometimes it's a little surprising. How intentional was this? Did you all go in and say, like, we wanted to make a funny game, we wanted to include these funny moments? Or was it maybe like the rest of the process where it was just natural to you?
I think we didn't want to. We didn't say it like that. It's like, this is supposed to be a funny game, because it isn't. Like it's really like heavy. But there's a lot. Like, I don't know. Most of the writing came from Franek and me, I think, or like some of the flavor and stuff. And I think our cultures have this way about like, there's no way for us to not joke around like this. And it doesn't. There's this like complaint about like Marvel stuff. Like they cannot keep in like a sad moment. Like they have to like always make a joke. And I didn't feel like we did that here.
No.
There are some moments. It's just to break the tension sometimes, but most of the times, I mean, these characters didn't feel maybe that they were living in a special end of the world kind of situation. It was just like day to day for them, and it was like kind of the times that they were living. So they had their humor. Like I think the most humorous ones are the twins. They are, because they bounce a lot of like, they have a relationship since the very beginning, and they're siblings, and they like bounce a lot of like conversations, and you can feel that like one is a little bit like more like a straight character, and then the other was always like saying stuff, and she's the like probably the one that says the most bad words as well. There were some that we have to tone down, and I think but then in other moments, like one of the most screenshot moments in the game that I've seen in socials is the like where you see this captain that is drunk, and he's like, I have this like the map, and he's like, where is it? And like right here, and it just says like Rap's crutch, because you cannot like show anything in this, but it's like I think it's like just funny and ridiculous in the moment, because it's like you know that something bad is gonna come, but it's like just at the middle of it. So we weren't like it's a joke here. It's more like that's how we wrote it, and it worked. The emojis were a conversation. I think the team liked it since the very beginning. I don't know if it's because we're used to writing like that, and also like this dialogue interface looks like texting, so it feels natural there. And we wanted to create like a mood system for characters to change their faces, but like again, there's not a lot of space. It will need a lot of more art in areas that are maybe not as needed for this game. Someone in the publisher, like inside of them, were like arguing against it, I think at some point, because it felt like too like for kids or something. I don't know, like he was like making an argument like it like, and there were some comments about people saying like it takes them out, like seeing the emoji makes them feel like it's like something less of what it should be. But I don't agree. I feel, to me, again, and it's entirely how you're used to seeing these kind of characters in the context that, like, the emoticons kind of thing.
Yeah.
To me, they've always been a part of the way I communicate, and others also like around me. So it feels like it works. But again, it's a discussion. That part was specifically a discussion. The humor, I think, in some moments we're like, oh, no, this is too much, like tone it down. But other than that, I think it was mostly how it happened.
Yeah, I think it was a good juxtaposition though, because there are some really intense moments. And like, honestly, by the end of every act, I was just like, oh my God. So having characters that were able to find humor, and when they were relating to other people, make jokes or have these quips, did let the pacing rest a little bit, so you can have the super intense moments, but also feel, like you said, like these are real people. You don't lose your sense of humor, in your daily life as you're going about, the world.
And you can see, like,
so,
I think Tiso is probably the one that has, it's more like, like most of us happened to him. He's older.
Yeah.
But you can also see how he plays with like his friend at the very beginning, like someone that knows him from before, and or like when he's like connecting with the team, like at the very end, you can see some conversation that like open him a little bit more. But it's mostly because he's a lonely old guy that has had a lot of things happen to him.
Yeah.
That he's like, he has a sense of humor, but he doesn't use it as much.
Yeah. I mean, there's something too about like the world itself having humor in it. Like, I think about the goats and like where they are within the hideout, or, when you finally confront El Gallo and he runs away. It's like, these are moments like, I think, the Marvel criticism is a lot of like, it's like they're looking at the camera and winking, and that just kind of gets annoying after a while. This is not that. This is like the environment has moments of humor, just like real life has moments of humor. And your balance, like I think it's really important. Like I think about that moment with El Gallo and the boss battle, and then the big like emotional ending of the game. I think if you don't have something to break that tension before going into that ending sequence, I don't know if it lands as strongly. So I don't know. I think like that humor really gives you kind of a break that you need so that you can engage with those emotional moments.
Yeah. And I think for El Gallo, the way he behaves is like how we see, like we are individually and in our countries have like our story has told us like about, like we have about the themes that we touch, like there is a lot of like industrialism, capitalism, but it's also like the colonialism and stuff. So like, that at the end, they're just people. They're powerful because they have these structures, and later in the game, they have these like engineering structures that are helping them. But at the end, they're just like a person, and a person that is probably not like a strong fighter, because they use in this case, like the money and like the machinery and the like the advantage that they had towards like the indigenous people of this world. So that's what they used to like to oppress them or like find the things that they were trying to do. But once it was on its own, on his own, like it's just a person. And then Tiso, he's kind of like a superhuman in a way, you know, like he's way more like, or like the other characters as well. Like they're like too strong. Like they've been fighting against them in many ways without the tools that the others have. So it needed to end that way, I think. Like you have to, you gotta have like the epic battle, obviously, but like after it's just like a human, and it's a human that is like and also like you can reflect it in like our own characters. You don't have like 100 HPs or whatever, like a couple points. Like it's pretty dangerous. It's a pretty dangerous world, and it moves fast.
Speaking of danger, the one thing that, and being human, I think one of the most human elements of this game was the guilt mechanic. I found it really fascinating primarily because guilt is subjective. Like in a lot of games, you have this is bad, this is good, here are the points that you get and the path that you will take. And it felt as we were playing, at least for me, it was not that black and white. It was very morally ambiguous at times, very gray. And I'm really curious just how you came across this guilt system and what was the decision to make it so gray? Like, why did you create this really morally ambiguous, I think
it's the other way around. I think a morality system this is meant to be a way of the developer of the game saying this is good or this is bad, you know? But in this world, because they are all different, like they don't belong to the same tribe. Sometimes they're racist against each other, like because that's like how the world works sometimes. And so they don't like something that is really good for one character or like that it doesn't feel as bad. It's the opposite for the other, you know, like killing, it's something that is going to happen to all of them. Or like when you play with the kid, it's also like what is bad for him is completely different. It's just like disobeying or something. So at some point it was a curse system because it was more related to the ghost than these other things, but it felt out of place. And the only thing we knew at the moment, it was that we didn't want to call it a moral system because of these things that we discussed. We didn't want to see it through our own lenses, modern lenses. We didn't want to try to like create like a morality, like this is good and this is bad. These are the, you know, like the bad characters, and there's obviously some bad characters, but like in the context of the game, like it would not fit the different perspectives. So in a discussion with another group of writers that they were trying to join our team and like help us earlier before Tina, because she was the one that like eventually like took that like the writing stuff there was this feeling about like, well, you're creating a good story, but like you're not writers or like even like native English writers, so we're gonna try to find you some help. And that's the most important thing that came out of that, I think, was the guild system. They found that word. They were like, oh, maybe you want to call it this, and we're like, yeah, that's exactly it, because then it's up to you, up to the individual character that you're playing, not all of them, not like, you know, like what makes someone like, there is a moment in It's at the very beginning when you steal something from Gravestone or like the tomb, and it impacts her because in her tribe, with her people, that's not something good to do, you know. Like they value this. Maybe Tiso, it's different, like or like there is this I don't know if it was with Tiso where he stole the golden teeth, or it's also Itza, and like that you feel weird about that. It's like it's a guilt that it's like unrelated maybe to your beliefs, but it's most like general like world beliefs, but it's more like, I mean, I stole someone's tooth to like teeth, you know, like it's kind of strange. Anyway, that's where that comes from. It's more like trying to see there's some like, because it's a system that also took some time to like put in there, and it was mostly as a mechanic and thing to add this other thing that breaks the turn-based thing, which I think it's like another really important, like interesting thing that we found. And like, oh, it ties the whole thing together. Like it forces you to not be just like moving around or like waiting too much or like play too safe, because it's also like, it's so strange. It's a tactic game, but you shouldn't think too much about it. Like it's not chess or like you know, like these games that or like Into the Breach where you have to like pay a lot of like attention to the grid or the board and figure it out. I think it's better if you play it as an action game. You like go in and just like strategize and like even in this like the systems that we give you for to have fun. Like if you're feeling that this is too hard, you can just like have infinite bombs, like well dynamites, and it's just like just go and throw them, and like maybe you die, but like it's easy to like get back to it. That's that system of like retrying was something that we were like, no, we need. There was some conversation about like it needs to be hard, and because it's hard, like because it's a system that is not that known. It takes time and it's floaty. It's not like a grid. It's not like, okay, 2 + 2 = 4. It's always like, oh, that was a millipixel difference.
Yes.
So it's not gonna hit, but it looks like it's gonna hit. But like a lot of things are playing against. So it's a lot of trial and error, and like a lot of those things came from like I make most like in my career casual games. So I always and mobile, and it's like for like the world. So I'm trying always to like include everyone. So and I don't care too much about hard stuff. I do understand that people like to have like some things that they need to like grind and like do a couple times before they got there. But I think there was a huge conversation about this kind of system, but eventually it feels nice because like, again, like this system's done. If you want to play it the hardest way, you can. You just don't use those things.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you like the story and you want to explore it, then you shouldn't feel like you need to like, you know, like bounce off of the combat because it's like weird or like too hard.
Yeah. That is like a trope within our little gaming community, is that I am notoriously very bad at combat. And so like to the point that in other games I've had to have Jenny like play levels for me so that I could get through it. But you had all the tools in this game to let someone like me who's like, I keep dying. I'm just gonna start throwing dynamite, and like it was great. I had a blast. A blast. It was great. So yeah, I think you like the idea that like you wanted this to be for everyone. 100% paid off and allowed me to like really access and enjoy even the combat experience.
I knew that there were gonna be people that love the graphics and the story enough, but they didn't care about the combat. And the combat is like, I guess, mixed. Like there is some complaints like from the purist of like the tactics, because I wouldn't. It looks like a tactics game, but it doesn't like follow the things that make a tactics game. But like it looks like it. So I knew there were gonna be people that would like this other part and not that, and vice versa. There's people that don't care about the story, and we had some plans for them to. We are still discussing maybe like creating like a roguelike kind of space for you. Like I don't know if you saw in your quest the arena, which is like a place where you just fight. We had a demo before we released the demo that is just the intro to the game that had that with a lot of combats, just like random things that you can like continue, and that's something that we're looking for, like to develop more and be able to like put it in like out of the meta of the game, you know, like on the title screen, to be able to like, you know what, here's 100 characters that you can fight, or like all of them. There's like here are your characters, like the main ones, or you can create some, or you can like use these other ones, because we create like this system is so flexible that you could play with whatever character in the game. But like for the narrative part, it didn't make a lot of sense to balance and all those things. But when it's like in an area that is like, all right, you're just gonna have combat and have fun, and you balance it on your own, then I think it's something that we still want to make for like later maybe.
Awesome.
That's really cool. We have time for one more question, and this was a great question from Val that I wanted to make sure and ask, because it's something that I was also really interested in. Val wrote, Paulo Freire, I believe is how you pronounce it, once wrote, "The oppressed, instead of striving for liberation, tend themselves to become oppressors. I see this dichotomy in how Tiso and Itze approach the Red Company. How did the team come to the conclusion that Arco should have a character driven by the goal of vengeance and then another driven by the goal of liberation?"
I don't. When you think of, I think the first story, like, or the main, because I saw that in your question you had something about the theme of like Western and stuff. I think at the very beginning the game was supposed to be like a Western inspired, more like and Westerns are always about vengeance. And Tiso, before he was even written as the character that we now know, it was just like the placeholder of like the Clint Eastwood kind of character you've seen a Western, like classic, you know, Western. So I think that was the structure for him was pre-designed like by the things that were chosen as a style and like the vibes, like it was mostly that. But then eventually, because the world became like so, it had more stuff in it, and eventually when we like split the characters, and like it wasn't like, oh, this story is going to belong to this other character, but eventually we created these other characters. And Itza, she had more like her culture felt like it's inspired by the like from the Mayans, but it's also like some Amazonian in there in a way, because the way she behaves. So she was looking for glory. She was, there were some like issues, but like at the end she was the one that like, she was arrogant, and like she was so strong that at the end she was like, at the beginning she was pushed away, like, and then it made her chose this starting point path that like made like, then they threw her away, so it in part her motivation was like, I want to be part of my community again in a way, but also like she still wanted glory. Like she's more like looking for, and I don't think she wants to be like a leader. She just mostly wants to go and fight. She's more like a Goku kind of character. Like yeah, I saved the world, I guess, but it doesn't matter to me much. I just want to fight strong people. Or like like you have this like, and eventually you like, as you write them, you kind of see their truer colors.
Yeah.
Or what actually motivate, like what is in between. There's ways, I think, to like write games or like anything where you like structure it first and you follow the like regular paths and you like pre-do those things. We didn't do that. We were more like games where we iterated a lot. We decided this is gonna have a story, like middle of the game, that we already like had the systems, and then like, well, the systems play nice with stories, we should add that. And then we continued like editing and writing that. So it was not a lot of like pre-production kind of like, pre thoughts. It was mostly the characters emerge from the things, or like the story. We kind of knew, like we knew where it started and more or less where it was going to end. And there are many things in the middle, but they were like wrote as individual things. And then when we connected some stuff, it allowed us to see like the character path, like their own story, more than the things that happen to them on the way to the thing that they have to do. It's, I don't know, it happened. I don't think we're like good at writing or anything. Again, I would not advise people to do it this way, because you might not find it and then you're gonna end up with something that doesn't work. We were just like kind of lucky, kind of like we had enough time with the systems, because we front loaded a lot of like the combat system stuff, like spaces and all that. It was easier, I think, to just like eventually just focus on like finishing the story and the characters. And again, like that was simple to do once, because if we were doing that and then we were the systems to tell that story, maybe it would not have evolved, because it will have this Bible at the beginning that will be like, this is this Arco's story. But it was the other way around. We have a lot of systems and we need to fill them with something like spaces and stuff. So that's why when we discovered that the game was more than 10 hours, when we thought it was going to be like less than, I don't know, like 5 to 8 or something. And then like, well, I think it was like 15 is like the medium point of like people. Is like, that's way more than what we thought we would be making. But like, again, we just got lost in the middle of the thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm very glad that you all got lost.
Yes,
and
thank you for getting
took
lost.
that iterative journey. I mean, I wish we had more time to chat, because you really did create something, I think, that was really special, impactful. It's something that I will be continuing to think about even though we're done playing. I guess just to wind it down, you've already mentioned like you've had your Suika game that you've been working on, your Suika like on itch. Is there anywhere else folks can find you, or any other projects you're doing that people can support you on?
Yeah, I think all of us are on Bluesky now. Franek, again, artist, game director, he's the most popular one of the team. He does amazing. If you like the art, follow him anywhere that you can find him. The musician, we didn't talk much about music, but I just want to say that also like the songs that have lyrics on them, like the actual, like, that was not planned. And then at some point he was like, I wrote a song with like lyrics, and then he sang it to us, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yes.
Oh my
And then he's like, yeah, I kind of want to put them in a game, and then we figure out this like ending, like outro episodes with the song like running, like little like white, and those moments are so impactful. I don't know how it feels to you. I mean, now they have subtitles and all that, but like to me, in my native Spanish, just listening to them, it's just like I cannot listen to some of them because they made me so sad about the things that happen around them, and they were so well made. Like it has, I always joke that it has a lot of like 90% of the build size is music and sounds because we had Viviki since like he's been there since the very beginning. Just like it's like a bard on your party, just like adding music to stuff. And it is amazing. And then Max, well, Viviki you can also find on Bluesky. Max is the one that is the less. He has a presence on the internet, but he has more like a blog kind of thing. And Max Cahill, so he's really into systems. He's also an artist. Like there's a lot of like talented people. And then me, Fáyer Dev. You can find me somewhere. Like I have in Bluesky, I put the stuff that I'm doing, and if you follow my website, you can like fáyer.dev. You can find other stuff that I've done before. There's a playdate game that I made after Arco, like in between finishing Arco and now that it's gonna be announced soon, I guess. Completely different. Again, like I tend to, as a final thought as well. Like I don't. This is something that I realize discussing the game with others, but like I don't think Arco is the game that we wanted to, like if you ask individually, I don't think it's a game that we would like to make individually, but it's the thing that emerged from the mix of the team. And I think that's also surprised that it worked because like each of us had different tastes and ways to do stuff that we will make something. We will take, like if you gave me the shape of Arco and you tell me to make a game, I will make something different. And I think it will happen with all of us at the same time. But it's not our favorite in the way that it's not the kind of game that we will be focusing on making if it was like and we're struggling again, we're not a studio, but like we want to keep working together because we like each other and we made something that we quite like we're proud of. But it's like difficult to find the next idea because it's like we are so different in many ways, and so follow us individually. We don't know if we're gonna make something after like together in the same way, but maybe that's it. And there's an Arco website and socials as well for like future updates for the game. And yeah, thank you for having me and discussing this game and for saying all those nice things. I really like being here with you and like talking about it.
Thank you. Yeah, we really, really appreciate it. So for folks who are listening, you can check all of the links in the description of the podcast. But that is it. I would, before we sign off with Joel's weekly benediction, we are off next week, but you can start playing our April title, Lost Records Bloom and Rage, and our first discussion episode for Tape 1 will be out on the 15th. So if you would like to get a head start, jump in, play Tape 1, and the Discord channel will be ready for folks who are already ready to discuss it.
Thank you so much for joining us at Geeks and Grounds. As always, we love hearing from you in the community. I hope you all find a small group of people that you can make something greater than the sum of its parts with. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.